Bienvenido.
大家好.
Welcome to the 2021
City of Angels International Christian Church Women's Day.
We're excited.
We're excited you're with us today as we learn how to be a light.
Be a light
In this dark world.
Welcome.
Good morning, and welcome to the City of Angels International Christian Church Annual Women's Day. My name is Leanne Kernan, and it is an honor and privilege for me to be your host this morning. The women's ministry of the City of Angels Church is so excited for this event. It's finally here, and we're just so grateful that you're here with us. You know, if you're visiting us today, I want you to know you are the result of an answer from God of our prayers, our fasting, our follow-ups. And we are just so encouraged to be able to enjoy this event with you. Our church is a non-denominational, Bible-based group that spans 19 ministries all throughout LA. And so for us, this particular year, whereas normally we get together in our different ministries for Women's Day, this is so special for us because for the first time in over 10 years, we are having a congregational Women's Day. So we're very, very excited. All over the world, International Women's Days are celebrated. They're celebrated to highlight and put forward the social achievements of women throughout the years. And it's so powerful because women, not only just being a woman is so powerful, but as a woman who fears and loves God and shows it in her life, the impact is immeasurable. And so that is why this event is so special to us here at the City of Angels Church, because this year's event, we are so excited to announce that our theme is Be a Light. This theme is inspired by the scripture found in Matthew 5:14, and it says the following: "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden." This past year has been full of so much darkness. The pandemic has forced us into our homes, which has resulted in spiritual and emotional strain. And yet the Word of God calls us to fight, to be a light, not only in our homes, but in our communities, and yes, to the entire world. Honestly, this is a much needed message for us today, as we are called to shine the light of God out into the darkness in the world. We will be hearing from 4 incredible women and their testimonies, and they're from different stages of life, different backgrounds, but we're gonna get to hear that at the points where the darkness was the darkness, God's light was able to cast and shed a light in their lives, not only to them, but to the women that were impacted around them. Responding to these incredible testimonies, I'm so honored to be able to introduce you to the 4 women that are sitting with me right now. The first woman is April Baker. April oversees 4 ministries in our LA church here. Not only that, she has overseen churches in the Middle East and is such an amazing example of perseverance throughout all different sorts of trials. Next, we have 2 incredible women who serve as shepherdesses here congregationally in our church, and that's Teresa Antolon and Sharon Kirschner. And what makes these women so important and so special in our church is that they minister to the women in areas of marriage, parenting, but also life skills. And last but not least, we have Kristin Smith.
Yay.
Kristin is our women's ministry leader for the Arts, Media, and Sports ministry here in LA. But not only that, she's actually a television personality. So it's just so special to have you here and everything that you do for us here in LA.
Yay, thanks.
Not only that, but excitingly, we have as our keynote speaker, Michele Williamson, all the way from London, England. Michele is a powerful women's ministry leader as she serves in the church in London alongside her husband, Michael. And truly, it is a treat that we have her to give us an incredible lesson today. I'm so looking forward to being with you during this special event, but we can't start it without first going to God in prayer. And so with that, I'm going to have Sharon lead us in prayer.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you so much just for this glorious, glorious day, God. I'm just so thankful for this amazing event, Women's Day 2021, God. You are such a loving and gracious God. We want to thank you, Father, just for allowing us to be women that can change the world, women that can be a light, women that can raise up from our challenges and just all of the dark things that we have gone through and the suffering, God, and we can be a light, God, and that's only with you. And I'm just so grateful for this time that we're going to be hearing testimonies from women that have gone through so much in their life and raised up. You have raised them up to be a light, God. And I just pray that many people are impacted, the women that are here today, God, that they can relate and really, really even make decisions for their life, God, that will impact their lives, but impact the world. And I'm so thankful, God, that you've given us such an incredible purpose in life, that we can find our purpose, Father, that we can love you, God, and really, really just be that woman that we want to be and live that life that we all have hoped for and dreamed of, God. I'm just so thankful, again, God, that you have provided for us, that you have loved us. I pray that you'll be with every aspect of this service, that those that will be sharing, that those that will be giving to us, God, that we will give our full, undivided attention. And to you be all the glory, God. We love you so much, and we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
I see the day staring through my window pane. I see the dawn and I'm unafraid. All my troubles seem so far away. Sometimes I daydream, sometimes I waste it in the clouds inside my mind. Take my reflection, show me I'm blessed so I can see. So glad I found loving you right. Gotta get back to you. Hard to contain it. It's just so amazing. Now that you're here, you open the door. I'm so glad I found this love. Loving you, loving you. I'm loving you, loving you. Loving you, loving you. Yeah. Loving you, loving you. Loving you, loving you. Loving you, loving you. It was the same old faces, places, based appearances and not happiness. But when I broke free, you found me, you told me to live in your image and not someone else's. Sometimes I daydream, sometimes I waste it in the cloud inside my mind. Take my reflection, show me I'm blessed so I can see. So glad I found loving you. So glad, yeah. So glad, so glad.
There's a powerful quote that I read the other day in preparation for this event, and it's Iyanla Vanzant, that is the writer, and it reads, "When you stand and share your story in an empowering way, your story will heal you and your story will heal others around you." And it's so powerful because it's so true. When we share our lives vulnerably, it has the power to heal deep and old wounds in us, but other people that can relate. It can help them to find healing as well. More than that though, as Christians, when we share our testimonies, we can offer hope to someone else, but then we can point them towards God where they get a lasting and unlimited hope. And so I'm honored and excited to introduce to you the 4 women who will be sharing their testimony with us this morning.
Hi, my name is Denise Fordieri, and I'm 53 years old, and I've been married for 26 years to an amazing man, and we have 2 beautiful children that go to the University of Oregon. And I'm considered an empty nester.
Well, hello ladies. I'm so grateful that I get to share my testimony with you this morning. And the topic I got was be a light in your youth. And to be honest, when I got this title for my testimony, it seemed a little unfit because I was not a light in all of my youth, the light that God called me to be. My name is Mylan Wessels. I'm a senior at Arizona State University studying educational studies. I'm 20 years old. I live in Long Beach, California currently. I was raised by an incredible single mother who I look up to in so many ways, and never meeting my father, and to this day, never speaking one word to him.
Good morning, ladies. My name is Carla De Leon. I'm 28 years old. I'm happily married. I have 4 children and I'm expecting my 5th child. And today I get the privilege of sharing with you about being a light in your marriage.
Hello, my name is Nancy Stansel, and today I have the privilege to share with you about being a light in the workplace. A little bit about me. I am a licensed psychologist in California, and in my career I've had the awesome privilege to work across a number of different settings. I've had the chance to work with little kids in the hospital setting, to working with the elderly in nursing homes, and I love my job. I've learned a lot along the way, but it has not always been an easy ride.
You know, it's been interesting being an empty nester. There's one day you hear your name all day long to not at all. It was an adjustment for me. And then I had to think, you know, what really is my purpose in life? Is it just being a mom, or do I have more to give? And so I really had to look at a scripture that God has really put on my heart, which is Jeremiah 29:11, where it says, "I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, but plans to give you hope in a future." And then I was thinking, my purpose in life hasn't changed. My kids just went to college. And so that gave me hope.
My mom and I were never financially stable. We always had food stamps, we went to food banks. During the summertime, we would go to the park next to our house to get free lunches that the school provided. And I remember that when she would come home with a box of Oreos and a half gallon of milk, it was going to be the best night ever because it was not normal for us to get something like that. That was our special treat.
So a little backstory on my marriage. JD and I have actually only been married for 2 years. The start of our relationship was a lot unconventional. We actually met in the church. Unfortunately, as time went by, we began to focus more on dating and moving our relationship forward. That that focus completely took our hearts off of God.
And as I look back on my life, I see my life's been an adventure since the day I got married. My husband and I, we met at Nike, and we got married and we moved to Argentina. And we left everything. I left everything. I left my family. I left my career and moved to a whole different country with my new husband. That was an adjustment for me. It was challenging. I've never moved out of the country before.
I think the most challenging part of my career, and in some ways my life, was about 7 years ago when I started my internship. I was at the start of my psychology career, and I'd moved to this new town, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any relations, no friends, and I don't know about you, but as you get older, it's harder to make friends. So really, in a lot of ways, my work was my life. But work was not going great. I had a really steep learning curve that I faced when I was there, and as a perfectionist, it really took a toll on even my mental health.
In the midst of all of this, I decided that I wanted to start my relationship with God at the age of 13. I was so excited because I was finally going to have a dad. I was finally going to have that father figure that I always wanted, someone who would protect me and give me security, which was something that I wanted all of my life from a dad.
And in our marriage, we struggled. We didn't know how to be married. I didn't know how to be a wife. And so we had hard times. I thought, is this what I want to do? Do I really want to be married? Is he the one that I can live the rest of my life with until death do us part? We both had thoughts of that. We both had thoughts of divorce.
For the next couple months, we, because of our sin, we left God. We left the church, and for the next 4 years after that, we were just on a roller coaster of sin, and it got really hard. So eventually, we get married, and this is 4 years into our relationship, and we decide to get married to try to salvage what was so broken. But I think what we didn't realize was we were so damaged that signing a piece of paper really wasn't going to help.
By the time I was 16 years old, I decided to ultimately leave God because so much had happened through my life that I didn't know how to work through. In school, I was getting called a Jesus freak. There were many times that I went to the bathroom crying because of this. I experienced a sudden loss in the church of an incredible couple and their baby girl, and never truly mourned their loss. I was involved in an impure relationship and lied to so many people about it.
I wasn't working, and so he worked. I was lonely. It was a trying time as a 26-year-old to be so far away from what's familiar. And then eventually we moved to Taiwan, where for another transfer with the company, and I got pregnant. And we thought maybe having a baby would kind of help us in our marriage. And we'd go to the doctor to get that, to hear the heartbeat for the first time. And we're excited about it. And we get there, and the doctor says, no heartbeat, baby dead. And just that thought, hearing those words come out of his mouth was a shock. Like, what did I do? I did something. It was hard. It was devastating. Here I am in a foreign country with a husband who, yes, we want to make it work, but we're not that close. And my family, my mom, my friends are all in the States. And so it was lonely. It was tough. It did bring us together in a sense, that we could share our sadness together. But there was still a hole in my heart. And I know there was a hole in his heart that wasn't being fulfilled by our marriage.
A lot of times I had no idea what I was doing, even though I had the training to back it up. A lot of times too, I also felt like the people around me maybe labeled me as incompetent. I had so many instances where I would wake up in the morning and there would be a pit in my stomach because I didn't want to have to get up and go to work that day. And I would drag myself in, and the minute I would step foot into those doors, I would feel like a failure, like I could just do no right.
My mom's mental health was in a terrible place, to be honest. There were many times that I came home and she would be in bed still, all the lights would be off, and it's as if nothing changed when I went to school. I remember just coming home to a very, very dark home because of where her depression had taken her at this time.
At this point in our marriage, I was just so unhappy. Our children were unhappy, JD was unhappy, and more than anything, I just longed to have a relationship with God again. The only thing that was stopping me was I was afraid of the lashback that I was going to get from my husband. There was still so much idolatry there that I was afraid that he was going to think I was leaving him behind if I were to come back to God without him.
Eventually, I got pregnant again, and we had our first daughter, Teresa, in Thailand. And 14 months after that, we had our second daughter, Michele. And it was wonderful. Now I'm a mom of two. And it was like twins because they were so close in age. And motherhood has been the hardest job I've ever had, but the most rewarding. To be able to care for two little souls is truly an upward call, and I love them so much. They're amazing girls.
And you know, when I would get feedback from supervisors, it was just a continual reminder of me falling short of the expectations I had for myself, but also the expectations that others had of me. When I think back to that time, it's really clear to me that I was experiencing depression. And I don't think at the time I realized that, but so much of my self-worth and my self-image was tied in my performance and the way that people saw me, that by the end of everything, I just felt like I was this big. I was dealing with imposter syndrome. How did I get here? I was constantly comparing myself to others and getting into that comparison trap. I felt like I was under a magnifying glass, and really, there were just so many instances where I felt like I wanted to give up.
But eventually I had to come to the conclusion that in order to save not only my marriage, but my family, I had to fight for my relationship with God, no matter what that took. And so I was determined to be a light in my marriage.
When I left God, I started dating the guy I was impure with, and he became my security. He was the one that I put my identity on. Because of him, he was who I am. It wasn't because of God anymore. And I truly depended on him for my happiness and my security.
And I think through all the traveling that we did, it took a toll on our marriage. We weren't sure we could do it again. And those feelings came back about, is this really what we can do for the rest of our lives? And we tried marriage counseling. We tried reading books, and it didn't work. It wasn't working.
I felt like, man, here I am pursuing a career in psychology, but I'm a psychological mess. At that time, more than anything, I needed someone to believe in me because I didn't believe in myself.
And so we started doing things more as a family, and God really started working in his heart. During this time, I really clung to God's promises. I remember in 1 Peter 3:1 how it talks about when the way that we live our lives as godly women can win over our husbands. And so that's what I did. And we were both able to come back to God together. And it was so amazing because our kids got to see that. They started seeing the change in our marriage and our dynamic.
7 months down the road, we ended up breaking up. It wasn't a healthy relationship because we depended on each other too much. And the only way I knew how to fix this heartbreak, because this was my first heartbreak ever, was to go find another guy. And it was a guy that I grew a friendship with in high school.
God's timing was impeccable, as I would later need my husband to be a light to me. During this joyful time of us coming back to God, we were also expecting our 4th child. And it was such a happy time because this was the first time that I was going to experience a pregnancy and having a baby back with my church family. And it was just a time where it was full of joy. Unfortunately, about a month after we recommitted our relationship with God, a week before our son was due, we found out that his little heart stopped beating. And that was really, really hard.
This man was very manipulative and made me feel extremely incapable of love. He would tell me that I wasn't the only girl he was with, but that I needed to stay with him because I wasn't going to do any better. That ultimately no one would put up with me. And so it was best if I just stayed with him. And I thought if I stayed with him and he stayed with me, then that meant he loved me. It didn't care what he did to me or what he said to me. Before I left for college to Arizona State, he broke up with me. Of course, I was heartbroken, but then I went off to college and started to find my security in school. I was a 4.0 student. I strived to get straight A's. I wanted to be the best I could be, and I fought to make education my identity.
In that really difficult period of my life, I didn't have a light at work, the place where I spent most of my time. There wasn't encouragement that I was getting from there, and it just made it all the more difficult.
We were completely shattered by the news. It just wasn't something that we ever thought would happen, especially during such a happy time in our lives. I remember being at the hospital and just having a lot of thoughts and emotions specifically towards God. How could this happen to us? We're good people. We just came back to you. Was this a punishment for our past sinful relationship? There was just a lot of anger, a lot of hurt, because I feel like I had worked so hard to come back to God so He could be the foundation of our marriage and of our family, and then this happens.
Even though I seemed like I had it all together during the daytime, when nighttime came, I did anything a normal college student would do. I did the norm lifestyle in college. I would go out to parties, I would drink, I would smoke every night, take drugs that I never thought I would take. I took Adderall very consistently. I started taking ecstasy and shrooms. Just anything that they said would make me happy, right? This wasn't an abnormal thing in college. It was something that me and everyone I was doing around me was doing.
When I say God's timing was impeccable, my husband coming back to God couldn't have come at a better time. The loss of your child is one of the hardest things that a parent could ever go through. My husband was just an incredible example of keeping our eyes on God. Yet during that time, my husband was the one that would pray when I couldn't pray. He would show me scripture when my heart was so hard to get into the Bible. He just reminded me of God's goodness. Even through the suffering, he reminded me that God still showed us grace, and that, we were in a spot where we had just come back to God, and he was just really helping me focus back on the cross.
I remember sitting in my college dorm thinking, how did my life get this far? What happened? I remember being so joyful when I was younger. What did I do so wrong? Why am I feeling this emptiness and this loneliness in my life? I'm doing everything that other people are telling me that I need to do to be happy, and it's not working. This led up to me drinking so much this one night to a point where I was barely able to walk. My friends had to literally carry me back home. And I woke up the next morning not really remembering much of the night before, and having to get reassurance from my friends asking if anything bad happened to me. And thank God they said no, nothing bad happened. But I remember just this fear coming over me, and this was the first time I thank God for protecting me since I left him, because something totally bad could have happened that night, because I finally lost control.
But I'm really grateful because at that time, God definitely sent help my way. I remember one night when I was coming back late from work and just putting in extra hours just to keep up with everybody else. And I was walking home and I met these 3 ladies, and they reached out to me and invited me to Women's Day. But honestly, I was so emotionally and physically drained, I did not want to talk to them, even though they were really nice. But they were really determined to encourage me and really show a stranger that they didn't even know some love.
One day a coworker invited us to dinner, and they started to share about their life and how their life and their marriage changed when they became Christians, true disciples. And as they were sharing, we were both thinking, we wanted that. That's what we need. That's what we want. And they invited us to church and to study the Bible. And we did. And it was amazing. That hole in my heart was being filled in a way I never thought it could.
At that point, I decided to go back to God because I didn't want to feel this emptiness anymore. I went from a happy, pure, and innocent daughter of God, someone that I always wanted to be, to someone that I couldn't even recognize anymore, who was full of loneliness, hurt, pain, everything that I felt before I became a true Christian and more at this point.
And I was really impacted by that love and decided that weekend to check out this Women's Day event. And I was blown away. It was incredible to see people being able to have joy and contentment in something outside of what we typically put our joy in, career, performance, what have you. And it was awesome to be able to see them finding this contentment in God.
To live the way the scriptures call us to live. And because we both were doing it together, it made us have the opportunity to really work on our marriage, to be honest with each other, to be vulnerable with each other in a way we never thought we would be without the Word of God and without people in our life. And that was 20 years ago in Portland, Oregon. And now fast forward to 2007, we moved to LA to be a part of the church here. And we struggled with Nick's job, but our marriage was stronger. Like we could get through things. We can get through the difficult times.
We thought the hardest part was finding out that our son had passed away, and then we had to deliver him. And then we had to leave the hospital. And then we had to come home to our kids, and we had to explain to them why their little brother wasn't coming home with us. And I think just every step made it harder to focus on God. And I'm so grateful for my husband, because even through the pain, he was grieving, he was mourning, he was suffering. He reminded me to focus on God, and he truly was a light to me, not only to me, but to our children.
Shortly after, I decided to start studying the Bible with some of the women that invited me out, and I learned that I could find so much peace and contentment and joy, not in my self-esteem, but in my Christ esteem. Those women, to this day, I am so grateful for them, taking the time to be a light to me. To this day, we're really close friends, and they were even in my wedding.
And now we have the honor and the opportunity to work for our benevolent organization called Mercy Worldwide. And we lead projects all around the world to help those less fortunate. And I was thinking back, God, you've allowed me to go through these things in my life for this purpose. Because I remember Jeremiah 29:11 about plans. And our kids were now in college, but he gave us an opportunity to move overseas. And so God put it on our heart to move to Phnom Penh, Cambodia, where we have an orphanage there called the CSW Mercy Orphanage. We have 58 kids, ages 6 to 24. When I got there, these kids stole my heart. They're amazing children. And I thought, God, you've given me this opportunity. You allowed me to raise these two beautiful girls that we have, and they're off in college, but now you give me 58 more to care for.
In so many ways, those women were a light in my life, and I really believe that in the same way we can be that light for others, especially in the work setting. Right now, more than ever, as we're in this global pandemic, we're also facing a mental health pandemic. Rates of depression, anxiety, sleep disorders, you name it, are at an all-time high. And with us social distancing, we are feeling more isolated more than ever from our family and from our communities. The sad reality is that in a lot of ways, our work setting is maybe the one stable community that many of us have. And for that reason, it is so important that we aren't afraid to let our light shine, because we just don't know what people are going through.
Really, these kids, all they want is love. They want someone to play with them. They want somebody to teach them about life and life skills. And we wanted to inspire them. They can do anything that they want to do if they just put their mind to it.
Being a light in the workplace is more than having a quote, an inspirational poster on your wall. And it's definitely not preaching a sermon every time someone asks you how your day is. It's really taking a genuine interest in people, letting them know that you really care. There have been quite a few times where I've had coworkers open up to me about marital issues, family problems, issues that are going on with work, and even suicidal thoughts. And they opened up because they felt like someone really cared. And there's so many other women out there who, especially now, are just desperate for the light that we have.
And now God has us on another adventure where we're going to the Philippines to work with children there, street kids and orphans, and I'm just in awe of what God has done in my life.
Now here we are almost a year later from recommitting our relationships with God, and our relationship as husband and wife is a lot stronger. The dynamic within our family is just a happier dynamic.
Our theme scripture for this conference reminds us that we have to be a light so that others can see the glory of God. So I really want to encourage you, don't be afraid to share that light that God has given you, the light that we can find in Christ. For some people, it might mean the difference between life and death.
Now we're expecting our rainbow baby, and I'm just really grateful for God's promises that when we are a light to others, it's evident.
Some of you all today may be watching, thinking, man, I want to understand how to live out that purpose of being a light, but I just need a little help to figure out how to do that. For some others of you, you might be like me and really looking for that light. I want to encourage you to reach out, please, to the person that invited you. I guarantee that she will be only too excited to share with you the hope that she has in Christ.
Yes, I'm an empty nester. Yes, I'm older. But it's just, age is just a number. And as us in this stage of life, we have so much to give. And so we just need to allow God to let our light shine in any way that He sees, where we can benefit people.
And I'm so grateful that God gave me another opportunity to be the daughter that I always dreamed that I could be and have the father that I always dreamt of once again.
So I just want to encourage you women, if you're going through a situation in a relationship where you're scared to be the light, I want to encourage you not to, because like I said, God's timing is impeccable, and you never know when you're going to need to be the light for someone else to be the light in your life. But thank you so much for letting me share.
And now I fight to be the light in my youth.
And so I'm just so grateful that I could share with you today.
Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you so much for letting me share.
And now I have the great pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker for this day's event, Michele Williamson. Michele Williamson currently serves as a women's ministry leader for the London International Christian Church alongside her husband, Michael. Michelle's been happily married for 18 years and has 3 beautiful children. She's devoted to counseling women and helping them heal from their past with the power of God's holy word. I personally know Michele for almost 15 years now and have had the honor of being mentored by her when I had my first child 11 years ago. I admire her so much as she is a passionate and bold preacher of God's word, exemplary mother, and dear and precious friend. With that being said, I love you dearly, Michele, and to everyone, I give you Michele Williamson.
Good morning, my fabulous, beautiful friends. I am super, super honored and excited and grateful to be able to speak to you today about being a light. First of all, I just want to say a huge thank you to my friend Leanne, who oversees the Los Angeles church. Thank you, Leanne, for being a great light to me and to thousands of others, and for choosing me today to speak to your women. I wanted to also thank Elena Garcia McKean. You have been a bright light to me for over 15 years, and I am very grateful for your mentorship and leadership of our movement. I also want to thank the LA leadership team, as well as Sharon and Teresa Antolon, who have been great friends and supporters of me and Michael in over 11 years of being here in London, England. And I am actually preaching on a sunny day. So it's one of very few sunny days here in London. So it's really a blessing from God today that He's shining His light and really reminding me today that I need to be a light just as He is a light in my life. I am so inspired by all that you're doing. Keep it up, and let's be lights in this dark world right now. Let's turn our Bibles to Genesis 1. I'm going to keep it really simple. We're going old school. You're going to be able to find this right away. As I said, I'm going to keep things really simple today. I have just 2 points, and I'm excited for you guys to really listen to this sermon and really make decisions today And that is my goal, my prayer, and my heart. I have 5 really key challenges at the end of my lesson that I hope that you'll put into practice today so that you can be a light and find the hope, the joy, and the freedom that comes from the light of Christ. As most of you know, my name is Michele Williamson. My husband, Michael, and I lead the London church, and we are missionaries here. As I said, I have been here for over 11 years with our 2 precious children, Michael, Adrian, and Mia, Grace. We have the privilege of overseeing 5 churches, and 3 of them are amazing churches in big cities. They are in Sweden, the Netherlands, and France. And we also have the incredible opportunity this year to see new churches planted in Lisbon, Portugal, and Scotland, Edinburgh. And that will be in October. Also in October, ICCM London, the International Christian Colleges of Christian Ministries, which is all over the world. Well, our London branch will have the privilege of awarding bachelor degrees to 20 of our students. And that is going to truly be a magnificent time. Are you in Genesis 1? I'm sure you are. Let's start in verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Wow. The power of God's word is incredible. God's word had the power to create the heavens and the earth, and not only that, but to separate light from darkness. God's word is the most powerful thing in the entire universe. God was able to create form from formlessness. We can see that right here. He was able to create substance from emptiness, and he was able to create light from darkness. Light is separate from darkness, and his light is the most precious thing that we can be into. And I'm going to share today how I came out of that darkness. When God said, "Let there be light," God was declaring his vision for this world. He doesn't want us to be in the dark. He wants and desires us all to be in his magnificent, life-giving light. He doesn't want us to be empty and formless. He wants us to not only have purpose and hope, but he wants us to be a light to others. 2020 was honestly one for the history books. It was a year like no other. The New York Times said that 2020 will long be remembered and studied as a time when more than 1.5 million people lost their lives to coronavirus. Racial unrest gripped the world, and democracy itself faced extraordinary tests. You know, our 2020 theme was vision. And Denise Fordieri, a dear friend of mine who also shared her testimony, joked with me and said, "You know what? In 2020, we saw a lot. And sadly, what we saw wasn't pretty." For me personally, 2020 was a fragile year. I saw deep insecurity as I turned 50 in October last year. Turning 50 for me, I thought was going to be an incredible, joyful event, but instead I was crippled with insecurity about getting old. I was crippled with insecurity about losing my beauty and even losing my purpose and value as an older woman. I had to be reminded, the light had to go on. I had to be reminded by the words of the Bible, which says that my beauty and my value come from a gentle and quiet spirit, a woman that knows her value in God's kingdom, a woman that leans on God's truth in her life. But I think for all of us, God shone the light very brightly. And it wasn't a beautiful glow light that we use for Zoom calls. It was a stark fluorescent light that he turned on in our lives. And he took away everything that we put our value in. He took away sports. He took away the gym. He took away entertainment. He took away health. He took away our wealth. So many of us lost jobs during this time. He took away position. He took away our sense of control and power. He even took away family members and our personal freedoms. One by one, we found the things that we looked to life for meaning and purpose and form and structure were gone. He was taking away these idols, forcing us into a Genesis 1 moment where we would see that without God deep in our heart, we too would remain formless, empty, and purposeless. You know, the coronavirus is no respecter of persons. Neither the wealthy nor the poor are immune from its effects. In the halls of the presidents, we saw them taken out, let alone friends and family and the clerk at the grocery store. No one was immune from its cruel claws. You know, money couldn't get us out of not getting coronavirus. There was no vaccine at the time. No position, no power, no manipulation on our part could change the threat of the virus in our lives. And we became very powerless. And I think in this moment, God was wanting and reminding us that we were very fragile and frail, that we were not in control. But you know, someone once said, the light shines brightest when it is darkest. And that is my first point. The light shines brightest when it is darkest. And I think in this time of deep darkness, in an unprecedented time in our world, God is shining brightly. And it is really a matter of us making a decision. Are we going to come into that light, or are we going to remain outside of that light? I'm going to get really vulnerable really quick and share my journey of how I came from utter darkness into God's wonderful light. You know, family legend has it that I was born on a dark and stormy night, and that all the lights had gone out in the hospital that my mum was in. And right before I was born, suddenly the lights came on, and there I came out into the world, a little girl that my dad and mum called Michele. At that time, at that moment, you know, life is incredible when we have new birth. The opportunities and the purposes of that child are great. But sadly, that storm never left my life. Sadly, that storm became my whole life, and it became a storm of deep pain and shame and failure. My dad was a very successful businessman, and I was born in Vietnam, and he eventually took me and my mum and my sister at the time out of Vietnam, and we traveled to Australia and emigrated there, which is where I grew up. I grew up in Perth, Western Australia. My dad had great power, a lot of money, and sadly, he also had a lot of female friends, to say it politely. But my dad was a very angry and very violent man, and very prone to drinking too much. In fact, he was an alcoholic. And many, many times I remember seeing my mom and my dad physically fight when she would confront him about the many affairs that he would have. And he would beat her into silence and submission. eventually I would learn as I grew older that my dad turned his lust onto my older sister. And they ended up having a very, very dark sexual relationship way into her 20s. And it was a really, really, really dark time. During that time, I even lost my faith in God because I would remember in the evenings when I would go to bed, just praying and begging, God, please, not tonight. Please do not let my dad go into my sister's room tonight. I can't bear it. And it didn't go away. God didn't take that situation away. I had to endure it. And it was one of the hardest times in my life. And I lost faith in a God and a good God that heard my childhood prayers. As a result of that time, I started to really lose my security. And, I loved school. So I became a very good student growing up. And I was really lucky because we lived a very privileged life. We were able to go to different, we were able to go to holidays. We had great homes. And I got the best education that money could buy. And I really wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be the best I could be. But during my final year of exams, my parents went through a really horrible divorce, and I ended up just sabotaging my exams and just partying. And I didn't end up getting into medical school. I ended up getting into a science that I didn't even enjoy. And it was actually in the first few semesters of college that I lost my virginity and got introduced to the drug world. And I just lapped it up. I decided, you know what? I can't be a doctor, so I'm just going to be a drug addict. Pretty much it was that black and white for me. I felt like a complete and utter failure. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to live fast and die young. So I just immersed myself into a world of clubbing, sexual immorality, ecstasy, marijuana, and alcohol. And I pretty much lived that for a very long time until I was 30. I would travel the world. Every time I could save up enough money, I actually ended up in 20 different countries looking to escape the darkness from within. But tragically, the darkness just got darker and darker, and at my own hands at this point. I ended up having 3 abortions during this time and a ton of just failed relationships with men. There was a time when I was dating 2 or 3 different guys at a time, and I didn't care. I did a number of jobs. I actually managed some, out of this darkness, on the outside, I was a very successful account manager. I put myself back into school. I graduated with honors in a business administration degree. I ran 2 marathons. I went on a triathlon. I was a pretty extreme person, on the outside. But these were all pursuits of happiness, trying to find something that would give me meaning and purpose and just take away the darkness of my shame. But nothing worked, and it just got darker and darker, to the point that I actually ended up getting married. I even pursued marriage in the hope that it would somehow fix me and save me from myself. So I married a man that was very well educated and highly successful and financially stable as well. But in 6 months of our marriage, I found myself in a therapist's office confessing that I had an affair, and I was having an ongoing affair with a married man. After that, my secret ended up coming out, and I was divorced. And that was the last thing I'd ever imagined at the age of 29 years old. And in 2001, I remember just feeling like, okay, I've got to do something about myself. I wrote a New Year's resolution list, and I said, you know what? I am not going to date this year. God, it wasn't a prayer. I wasn't really into God, but I was like, I am not going to date. And number 2, I'm going to find a community of people that love me for who I am. And it wasn't a prayer. It was a New Year's resolution list. But this is how powerful God is. God heard the deepest desires of my heart. He heard a cry for help, and he rescued me. Soon, I would end up meeting some friends at the university or the college that I was attending, and they, week upon week, would invite me to church or to different events. I remember them asking me to come to a church dance, which I was like, that is actually not very appealing. You really don't want people like me at something like a church dance. And I would just consistently say no. But eventually, they wore me out, and eventually I did attend a Bible discussion group. And soon after, in less than 3 weeks of looking into God's word, I studied the Bible and I got baptized for the forgiveness of my sins on March 9th. That will be 20 years this year that I have been in God's wonderful light. And I am so grateful that God draws us out of the darkness and into his light. I love this scripture in Job 29, verse 3. It says, his lamp shone over my head, and by his light I walked through the darkness. And I am so grateful that there were people in my life who didn't just keep the light to themselves, but they shared the light with me, which was the Bible. And that really, really drew me out of a very dark situation. And I would not be the woman I am today if it wasn't for those friends and for God's wonderful word. My second point, I hope you're still there and attentive and having fun, but my second point is simply shine. In Matthew 5, this is our theme scripture. Let's turn there, would you? Matthew 5, and we're going to pick it up in verse 13. It simply says, you are the light of the world. Let me repeat that. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. You know, knowing the truth comes with responsibility. We are in we have an unprecedented opportunity right now for the world to know this God of light. The world has been comfortable keeping God at an arm's distance. But right now, as we're brought to our knees and God has taken everything away, my sisters, this is the time for us to shine. Let's break this scripture down really quickly. It's a very, very powerful scripture. Fact number 1, you are a light. And you are not only a light, you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. Marilyn, Denise, Carla, and Nancy, who shared their testimonies. Sisters, you are a light to this world. Thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably. I want you to say it to each other. Turn to your friend, turn to your neighbor. You are a light to the world. Fact number 2, what do we get from this scripture? Fact number 2, God wants you to shine that light. He wants you to shine. What's the first thing we see when we're flying over a city at night? we see the lights, right? We see the lights. Lights cannot and should not be hidden. But fact number 3 says we try and hide our light. We put it under a bowl. So God says, don't put it under a bowl. Put it on a stand so that everyone can use and benefit from that light. But what happens? And this is really a powerful concept. What happens when we put a light under a bowl? Well, if it's a candle, it's going to go out, right? Because after a while, there's no oxygen left in the bowl for it to burn. And here's the thing, sisters. It's the same with us as disciples, as Christian women, as children of the light. If we keep our light to ourselves, if we keep our light under a bowl, eventually that light will go out. And I think for some of us here today, our lights are going out. Some of us here today are not growing because we're not glowing. We are trying to keep the light to ourselves. And so what stops us from sharing our light and shining? I think number 1, just flat selfishness. I can struggle with that myself. Just being selfish, not wanting to shine the light to others, but just keeping it for myself. Being okay with being saved and having the freedom and the joy that comes from a personal relationship with God, but being too selfish to share it with somebody else. I think number 2, fear, legitimate fear can stop us from shining. When we have a low sense of confidence in who we are, as stated in God's word, and if we don't truly understand that we're loved deeply by God, we can keep our light to ourselves. And I think thirdly, just guilt can stop us from shining. When we are living a double life or we have hypocrisy in our lives, we can be embarrassed to really shine because we don't want to be found out that we aren't, we're not practicing what we preach. And I want to encourage you today to examine, why am I not growing? Why am I not glowing? And make a decision today to get repenting of selfishness, to get confidence from God's word and what he says about you as a woman. And finally, to get open if it is an issue of hidden sin or living a double life. So that what? So that we can get shining. I am really, really inspired by Leanne, or should I say Dr. Leanne Kirschner. Leanne is a woman who is fiercely loyal to God and to her friends and family. As some of us know, Leanne recently lost her beloved mother just a few short months ago. But Leanne didn't keep her light under a bowl, even though she actually had, that was actually fine to grieve and keep your light under a bowl for a few months. But Leanne didn't. What did Leanne do? Leanne shone, and she shone gloriously. Leanne just published her first book, Paper Tigers. Leanne not only did that, but she is also graduating with a PhD, hence Dr. Leanne Kirschner. Leanne became a doctor this year. Leanne also spearheaded this amazing event. This is a woman that is shining bright for God, and I am so proud of your example, Leanne. I love you very much. Finally, to close on out, I just want to talk about the lampstand. God sometimes places us in situations to shine brightly for him. And then sometimes those situations can be very uncomfortable. Sometimes he places us on platforms like the one that I have today, which is to shine to a bunch of people. Other times he places on a smaller platform to be a light just to our close friends, coworkers, or family. Wherever God has placed us, we must not allow our feelings of fear or shame, discomfort, or feelings of inadequacy cause us to walk off the stand that God has chosen for us to shine. But a quick word of caution here. Our stand is for God's glory alone. Our stand does not draw people to us, but it is for God and God alone. Our stand is not for a political view. Our stand is not about gender equality or race equality. Now, these things are all valuable and good, but they're mere shadows compared to the bright light of the gospel message. We must not get sucked in to these agendas, but we must get open and close to God so that we can shine bright and truly give him the glory that he deserves and he deserves alone. Sisters and friends, our world today is in moral and spiritual darkness. There's injustice, there's oppression. Women are self-mutilating themselves. There's sexual slavery. There's despair, cruelty, depression, mental illness, insanity. There's broken lives, broken hearts, and broken homes. There's a lot of darkness out there. We have a responsibility like never before to be a light to this world. And it's time to shine. My challenge today is simple. Number one, start today. Take the S. Talk and get vulnerable with the person that brought you out today, T. Ask God to shine in the crevices of your heart, your emotions, to shine even upon your will, to show you the areas that you need to change. A, reach out and join a personal Bible study. R, and finally, shine your light. S. And what does that spell? That spells stars. You, my sister, my friend, are stars. Now go out and be a star and shine that light and make a difference in this dark world. I love you, and to God be the glory.
Wow, thank you so much, Michele, for just your incredible passion for the Word. I mean, you just inspired us with your life and with, the Word of God, and I just so appreciate it. I think, one of the things for me, the standout statement, I wrote it down. It was the first point, where it says, the light shines brightest when it's darkest, and that's so true. Like, it's so powerful. And, we got to see where Michele was and where God brought her, and for me, I just find it like, doesn't matter how far gone you think you are, God can always do something in your life and turn it around, You can feel like hopeless, helpless, but with the Word of God, there's always a chance to come into the light.
Yes.
And so I just super appreciated, especially that point.
So good.
What I loved is that Michele gave us practicals for all of us to take home today. And she said, be a star, S, and I wrote it down, start today, make a decision. T, talk and get vulnerable. A, ask God in prayer. Reach out and join us for Bible study. And lastly, shine your light. And I know God can do that for us.
Yeah, so true. Loved it. Michele, thank you so much for your wise words, but also just sharing your story with us. Wow, I just so appreciate Denise's vulnerability and her testimony. I mean, it's so incredible.
Yeah, I feel like I can relate so much because I'm also in my later years. And I think it's just amazing the question she asked. I wrote it down, do I have more to give? I thought that was so impactful because the word that really stood out to me is that she's been on this adventure through all her life, and yet there was a missing piece. And it was God's plan. I love the scripture in Jeremiah 29 that says God has plans for us to prosper us and not to harm us. And she has shown that in her testimony today, that she's even having a greater impact, being a greater light, and really making a difference in the world. I mean, wasn't that powerful about Cambodia and the 58 children that she has taken care of, and just she's going on to greater things, going on to hopefully the Philippines. But I just was really thinking and praying and just hoping that the women that came out today can really believe that God has a plan for their life, because it really is true. He has a plan to prosper us and that we can be that light. I really love that.
Well, what I really loved was Nancy sharing, and she was talking about how to be a light on the workplace. And I could relate to a lot of the things that she was talking about. As women, we could struggle with the steep learning curve. We could struggle with learning the culture on the job, and just this constant pressure to demonstrate our value, you know, as women. And I recently read that there's over 78 million women in the workforce today. And we could spend as much as a third of our lives working. And it is so important, Nancy stressed it, that we need to have a relationship with God where we can get our comfort, we can get our joy, and we get our security from God. And that's just so incredible, because she is an example to us today because of that. You know, and she also stressed that because of this pandemic, we need each other to ride the storm, because we could probably be, you know, the only bright light that someone sees in the workforce. And that's what I plan to do, and I thank Nancy so much just for her vulnerable sharing.
Yeah, isn't there this quote, like, sometimes you're the only Bible someone's gonna see?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so, so true. I love what you shared, Teresa.
What stood out to me was Mylan's testimonial. I really loved how she shared that, you know, she was just really looking for her identity in all the wrong things.
Yeah.
You know, when we're young, I remember doing the same thing. Relationships and schooling and my work, and just trying to find my identity in all the wrong places, you know. So I just really loved how she was vulnerable about that, and I just love how she always came back to God, and now her identity is in God. And I did the same thing when I was in my 20s, and now in my 30s I've realized that my identity is only in God, and that nothing else matters but God in my life. So I just loved what Mylan shared about that, because I think there's a lot of young women out there that can really relate to what she said.
Yeah, I think all women can relate to that. And, you know, what broke my heart in the best of ways was Carla. Yeah. Oh my goodness, her story. And what I loved so much is when she talked about how her husband was a gift from God. And she saw that he was a gift from God from the very beginning. But it was that gift that actually took her away from God. Yeah. You know, and I think for me, I can relate so much, because whether it's my marriage or my career, my kids, my ministry even, the temptation can be starting to worship the blessing instead of the one who blessed me with it.
Wow.
You know, but God is a God of restoration. I always say this, I love how full circle God is, and it was so incredible to see Carla's heartbreak in her marriage after doing it her own way. You know, that's what ultimately led her back to God, and how God restored her marriage and has blessed her with her 5th child. Like, wow. Oh my gosh, far better woman than us, Carla. You are a saint. But no, really though, I'm walking away from this event wanting to be a light in my marriage by keeping God front and center and never taking him out of that space where he belongs. So impactful, and I hope all of you at home watching are impacted as well.
In a time full of war, be peace. In a time full of doubt, just believe. There ain't that much difference between you and me. In a time full of war, be peace. In a world full of hate, be a light. When you do somebody wrong, make it right. Oh, don't hide in the dark, you were born to shine. In a world full of hate, be a light. La la la, la la la. In a place that needs change, make a difference. In a time full of noise, just listen. 'Cause life is but a breeze, better live it. In a place that needs change, make a difference. In a world full of hate, be a light. When you do somebody wrong, make it right. Oh, don't hide in the dark, you were born to shine. In a world full of hate, be a light. La la la, la la la. 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 In a race you can win, slow it down. Yeah, you only get one go round. 'Cause the finish line is 6 feet off the ground. In a race you can't win, slow it down. In a world full of hate, be a light. When you do somebody wrong, make it right. Make it right. Don't hide in the dark, you were born to shine. In a world full of hate, be a light. Be a light. It's hard to live in color when you just see black and white. In a world full of hate, be a light.
Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing. What an amazing and impactful event. And thank you so much for joining us this morning. You know, if anything has touched your heart or impacted you, please don't be shy. Reach out to us. You can find us on our website. But really, just to be honest, we're just ordinary people. We're ordinary people.
Very much.
Just want to do extraordinary things for God. That's it. So you are more than welcome to reach out to us. We have Bible-based parenting, marriage counseling, life skills that we offer, and we would be more than happy to get to know you better, but also help you get to know God better. So please don't be shy. Reach out and sound off in our comments. Tell us what you loved, what impacted you, what inspired you about today, because we love to hear your feedback as well. It has been an amazing, amazing morning. I'm so happy to be here with everybody. So grateful for Michele. Thank you, Michele, for just your powerful words and your call to the scriptures. But again, thank you for being with us today, and we hope that you have an incredible rest of your day. Take care. Wow.